Our next guest is Gerald Celente, trend forecaster extraordinaire and publisher of the TrendsJournal. Now, Gerald has made some pretty bold remarks on American militarism, saying it would lead to a global holocaust. So I first asked Gerald where the next future military threat for America is today. Here's what he had to say.
You never know where it's going to come from, and it doesn't have to be nuclear. In 2000, I was asked to be a keynote speaker at VMI, Virginia Military Institute. And they brought me down to speak about new millennium warfare. Because there's this saying that generals are always fighting the last war. So I was there to tell them what the new war would look like and how it would be fought. It doesn't have to be nuclear. It could be dirty bombs. It could be weapons of mass destruction. It could be biological warfare. And now, of course, it could be something that brings down a nation in many different ways, whether economically, biologically, and it could be nuclear. You don't know how it's going to happen, but science has progressed to the point where it now mirrors the forecast made by Albert Einstein, someone who knew a thing or two about more than one thing. And that is, I don't know how the Third World War will be fought, but the fourth will be fought with sticks and stones. And neither the world leaders nor the generals in charge understand the potential threat of what's out there and how much it can destroy.
Gerald, where do you think the U.S.-Russian political and economic relationship is headed?
Well, it's clear where it's headed, and that is toward more destruction, economically and geopolitically. We just heard from the German Chancellor Angela Merkel just a few days ago to increase the sanctions against Russia. Sanctions are an act of war. You go back to World War II, people think it began with the bombing of Pearl Harbor. There were sanctions in place also back then against Japan, which Americans rarely talk about, because actually Japan is doing a replay of what they were doing back then. And that was they were grabbing more trade, and they also had a devalued currency. And we just saw Japan devalue their currency with their Abenomics, where now it's gone up over 50% against the Chinese yuan. It's gone up against the Korean currency 40%. It's down to 7-year lows against the United States. So what did the United States do back then? Sanctions. Japan couldn't get oil. They couldn't get rubber. They couldn't get what they needed. And again, there's two sides to this story. I'm just briefing through it to bring it back to the present. Because sanctions are an act of war. And it's madness when you see what's going on in Europe. Here. The Financial Times, right in front of me. How's this for a headline? ECB pressed to act after Brussels slashes 2015 economic forecast. Front page story, brilliant. Oh, the economy's going down? I got an idea. I'll really be stupid. I'll play a president, a prime minister, a chancellor. We're going to put more sanctions, and we're going to slow trade down even worse than it is now. We're really going to do something that's going to make a lot of people suffer and push them into more difficult positions. Here's the story. When people lose everything and have nothing left to lose, they lose it. And what they're doing with these sanctions and acts of war are they're turning volatile situations into ones that are going to explode and ignite into war. It's an old scenario. You saw the panic of '08, the crash of '29, recession, depression, same thing going on now. Recessions are coming up, depressions are coming, they're there, they have been. Currency wars, trade wars, world wars. The world is now entering a currency war. Name the currency, the ruble, the yen. Go around the world. You can see what's going on, and you can see where it's going.
Gerald, Q3 GDP growth in the U.S. came in at 3.5% annualized pace last quarter. And one standout for me was the contribution of defense spending. Now, the pickup in military spending contributed a lot to GDP growth. So with Obama re-engaging in the Middle East, do you think the drawdown in U.S. military spending, is it over?
Oh, no, it's going to increase. Now that the Republicans are in office, and when you looked at the debate going on for the last several months, is Obama doing enough for more war? Again, current events form future trends. That's the business of the Trends Research Institute. We look at cause and effect. Here's a nice little headline for you. Obama to seek congressional backing for campaign against Islamic State. Yay, more money for more war. And now who you're going to see take over the Senate Foreign Services Committee, or words to that effect, the one that spends more dough for military, is John McCain, who keeps calling for more war every day. So no, it's going to be more spending on more war as the economy declines. You read that 3.5 number of GDP growth, but go back to the other ones throughout the year. And now look how things are softening again. So this is an inflated number. At the same time, you see new studies coming out where Americans' median wealth that they have is down below 1989 levels. So no, there's no recovery. It's a cover-up. The equity markets are doing fine because of all the cheap money pumped into the system and record low interest rates. The jobs stink overall.
So do you think the American media has given a balanced portrayal of the important issues surrounding Iraq and the Islamic State? What do you think there?
Well, they're prostitutes. That's what I call them. Look, this is the same media. You know, I'm a guy that's old enough to remember the Vietnam War. You know, I was prime draft bait in those days. And I remember how the Gulf of Tonkin incident came out. A big lie. It didn't happen the way they said it did. Look how the media took us to war against Afghanistan. Look what they did for Iraq. We did a story in the TrendsJournal, and I will send it to you, and a lot of the information came from Scott McClellan, who was the former mouthpiece under the Bush administration, with quotes coming from the major media, be it Katie Couric, who was with CBS at the time, Charles Gibson from ABC, one of the women from CNN, saying all the pressure that they got from the White House to sell the party line. Not my lines, their lines. They say it. It's the same thing going on now. Turn on the TV. You see the same tired faces repeating the same lines. Why, as a matter of fact, during this election season, I turned on CNN, which is now officially the Cartoon News Network, and who's shooting his mouth off over there? Obama's former flack, Jay Carney.
That was Gerald Celente, publisher of the TrendsJournal.